And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Thursday, January 2nd. I am Josh Engleman, here to break down a 6-game NBA slate. 2 games starting at 7:30. Let's make a note of that. 2 games starting at 8, and then we get a 10 o'clock and a 10:30. So it's not the best structure in the world for game starts, but it's fine. 6 games. It's a good slate size. We're going to have some fun. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow me on Twitter at Josh Engleman. What's going on, everybody? Fun one last night. Sorta. Was, we got McBrided. Funny. That was a funny one. It's always a good time when we immediately find out that we found the best play of the slate, bar none. And in a half hour, 60% of the field is dead to winning the contest. It's crazy. It's so crazy. 60% of the field get on to the best play of the day. And before the game even starts, it's already terrible. It's so wild. I broke even-ish, which I will take all day, every day. It could have been a lot worse. So, it happens. I don't hate it. Like, those types of situations are obviously annoying. And it would be better for all those involved if it couldn't happen like that. But it affects everybody equally. Nobody was more or less likely to benefit from that happening. Sometimes you're on the good side. Maybe you weren't paying attention. Maybe you misclicked and you got 5% of McBride after all that happened and you were sitting pretty. Or maybe you put him in 100% of your stuff and it didn't go your way. We got to remember, those situations, they affect everybody equally. Josh Chapman with the super chat. Quickly, 47 points. Russell near the same. Yeah, yesterday ended up being kind of wild for a couple people that I did not anticipate having big games. Emmanuel quickly comes back, plays 32 minutes, 21 points, 15 assists. Gotta say, I did not expect Emmanuel quickly to play 32 minutes yesterday. That one did not compute in my head. Only 1 turnover as well. Looked good, but massive day out of Jokic, no surprise. Massive day out of Karl Anthony Towns, that went well. Massive day out of Scotty Barnes. Massive day out of Josh Hart. We did get 55 out of Bam. Man, if we would have just not gotten that McBride news, I feel like I had a decent line on most of that top section, but I would have never had quickly, that's for sure. It's just wild, man. It's just wild. That's why I don't care too much about what coaches say. Because then Emmanuel quickly comes back after having missed like a month and just plays 32 minutes like it's normal. But now, we got 6 games to break down. It's an easy one today. But remember, we're starting a half hour later tonight. 7:30 start. Steven, I would imagine he was essentially unowned. Let me look. So I have the post-contest sims up right now. He had to be less than 1%, would be my guess. Quickly was 0.6% in the fadeaway last night. So, yeah. That's it was a tough one to get to. Not for the winner. The winner had him. So did number 2. Yeah, top 2 lineups both had him. No, he was not expensive, that's for sure. All right, let's get into this one, guys. Now, we're obviously going to have a couple back-to-backs today that will complicate matters at least a little bit. I'm going to refresh injury statuses just in case. There we go. And I'm going to pull up the 8:30 a.m. injury report, and we can get this started. And we're getting it started in Miami. Pacers, 1.5-point dogs, taking on the Heat. And we have a 224 total. But oddly enough, this is the fastest game on the slate. We don't have anything really breaking free. I've got every pace between 96.2 and 98.3. We have 4 of the 6 games with a total between 217 and 219, and the other 2 games are at 224. So like every pace and every total is basically the same today, which is not what I would have expected. So as we look at the Pacers, we've got no real news here. Obviously, still no Aaron Nesmith. Otherwise, everybody else is still out or doesn't matter for what we're doing here. There's no real ownership coming into these guys. We got to 13% on Miles Turner. He's 6,400 center only. And then it's single-digit ownership for everybody else. And that's pretty much where I see it. I got Halliburton to around 10% optimal. I got Mathurin around 9. I got Turner at 9. I got Andrew Nembhard to 14. I think he's sort of the most interesting dude here, but not like he's any sort of priority. Probably should be in that like 12 to 13% range. But he's 5,200. He has an MPE. He's playing north of 30 minutes right now. He's like a 0.85 guy. I don't mind it, but I don't see anybody on the Pacers where I'm looking at it like I should probably get a lot of this guy. You know, of the starters, Siakam is probably the guy I like the least, but no one stands out. Josh Chapman hit us with another super chat. There are some ugly games today. There are. I mean, Boston, Minnesota is pretty good. Clippers, OKC is pretty good. Philly, Golden State can be good. We shall see. Indy, Miami would have been good before the season started. But Boston, Minnesota, and Clippers, OKC, those are both fun. Even though the Clippers are 9.5-point dogs in this one. That's not great. Yeah, there's just... Do you guys see anything for the Pacers that stands out to you guys? Because I don't really have anything here. Little bits of any of the starters. That's really it. I would like to get to Halliburton more than anybody else. I think he's the most under-owned, but I don't think we're going to be short on any of these like $8,200 guys. Toppin. Toppin would probably be the last guy on my list to click on for the Pacers. I got him at 0% optimal, 0% boom, 0% ownership. He would be last. He would be last. Now, Miami. This is essentially not the time and to do anything with Miami. So they're on the back-to-back, obviously. We have no idea who's going to play. And we never really know who's going to play for Miami. Rozier is back. Does Jimmy Butler play today? I don't know. Does Duncan Robinson play today? He was questionable heading into yesterday's game. I don't know. We're getting, around 10% ownership to Tyler Hero, around 10% ownership to Bam Adebayo, and around 10% ownership to Duncan Robinson. I think those 3 guys are the 3 guys you would be trying to go to. I would also add Terry Rozier to that list. None of these guys look like any sort of priority, at least right now. But it is a pace-up spot for Miami. We just need their injury report. it's really hard to dig into a team where even when we know their injury status, I'm not confident in projecting their rotation. It's a lot harder to project the Miami rotation when you don't have it. So it's possible, your Tyler Heroes and your potentially Terry Roziers could look a lot better. Josh, why did you tell everyone to lock McBride? A weird troll. I mean, normally your trolls are at least like rooted in logic. That one's just dumb. Yeah, I do think that McBride was a hair under-owned yesterday. So yeah, like I don't want to dig too much into Miami here because we have no idea who's going to be available. They could end up with a lot of value if like Butler and Robinson and X sit. They could end up with basically no value if they're all in. So keep an eye on it. I will say this. I got the line by slightly different by 1.5. That's usually not enough to matter. And it leads me to think that Butler is playing and maybe we would have like no Duncan Robinson. But we're going to need this news on the deeper dive later today. Go to game number 2. Boston Celtics. Now this one's going to be tough. Celtics are 3.5-point favorites in Minnesota, 219.5 total. Jaylen Brown is questionable. Kristaps Porzingis is questionable. When I have them both in, I have Boston as 6-point favorites. I am expecting one of these guys to sit. I do not know which one of them it's going to be. Kristaps Porzingis does not have points props on FanDuel. Jaylen Brown does. Do with that what you will. There is no ownership coming into this Boston team right now. Obviously, this is a defensive matchup. It's a pace down spot for Boston. They lose 1.3 possessions below their average. Right now, we're projecting 6% ownership. Porzingis on DraftKings. Nobody else is higher than that number. I would argue Jason Tatum should be a little bit more owned. I would argue that Drew Holiday should probably be a hair more owned. Jaylen Brown and Derek White shouldn't be 1%. But this isn't the team you want if everybody's in, especially in a matchup against Minnesota. Now, maybe we get to 6:30 and we find out that Jaylen Brown and Kristaps Porzingis are both out. We are probably going to like a little bit more here for Boston. We're going to get a lot more Tatum, a lot more White, a lot more Holiday. We'll probably be paying more attention to Al Horford, to Peyton Pritchard. But as I see it right now, these are GPP pivots at best, but we need the Jaylen Brown news, and we need the Kristaps Porzingis news. Porzingis has missed the last 3, I believe. So we'll see if he's going to be able to make it for this one today. Jaylen Brown questionable with the right shoulder strain. Porzingis with the left ankle sprain. Everybody else that's normally available for Boston is available, but we're not getting any love here. That's for sure. We've got a little bit more love on the Minnesota side, which I doubt is all that surprising. I mean, these guys play an 8.5-man rotation every day. And that's leading us to close to 20% ownership to Ant. A little north of 10 on Randall. 5 for Gobert. 15 for McDaniels, 18 for DiVincenzo, 20 for Reed, 15 for Conley. I agree with all of this, and you can see it right here very easily. I've got double-digit optimal rates on all of these guys. 16, 13, 10, 13, 12, 18, 11. If you ever want a proxy for like a pseudo-optimal rate, just take half of my boom score. Because my boom total is 1,600%. So, you're talking 17 here, 14, 12, 10, 11, 13, 10. All these guys should be double-digit owned. Everybody from Ant, Randall, Gobert, McDaniels, DiVincenzo, Reed, Conley, all 7 of those guys should be somewhere in the 10 to 20% owned range. I would argue that Ant is probably my favorite option. Naz Reid would be second. And then I think everybody else is sort of in the exact same bucket. I like that Ant has point guard, shooting guard eligibility. 8,400 certainly works. I mean, think about what 8,400 gets you relative to some of these other guys, though. It's Halliburton, in and around Tyler Hero, Jaylen Brown. So it's a busy area. But I like Ant the most if I'm getting to anything here from Minnesota. Naz Reid, 4,500 power forward center is just kind of there. Got a big minutes bump last time out. He played 33 on New Year's Eve. So just knowing he can do that is helpful from time to time. But the value is there. Fantasy point per minute at 4,500. Got a target score right around 30. But all 7 of those guys are in play. And right now, the Timberwolves are the second most owned team on this slate. So I completely agree with the ownership that we're seeing here. Now, I don't really want to get to Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Although, in 150 lineups, I can see it. I definitely don't want to go to Josh Minot. But any one of those main 7 guys are on the table. 2 games up. 2 games down. Talk a little bit about the schedule for today. And that's going to require me to open it and look at it, because I don't have it in front of my face. And I don't honestly know what we got going on today. So today is Thursday, which means a very easy schedule today. 5:30, deeper dive. 6:30, NBA Live Before Lock. 7:30, myself and Greg on playback, where we will likely be watching Boston and Minnesota for a bit. Although that's probably the TV game, isn't it? So we're probably going to watch Indy Miami. Guessing that Boston game's the national TV game. Sure is. That's on TNT. Yep, we'll be watching Pacers Heat for the first 30 minutes. Jake, I basically haven't played in 3 weeks before yesterday. I threw a couple like random 20 maxes in on days where we did have a playback show, but I essentially haven't played since we got the puppy. But I did play last night. Now that football's going away and I'm going to be on playback shows later at night, I'll be more likely to be getting into it. But from the time we got the puppy, when we didn't have playback shows because we didn't, and like all the holidays, I just said screw it and enjoyed my time after we were done doing shows. It's a long day, but like yesterday, I played the flagship. But yeah, like today I'll play the flagship, because if I'm gonna be on playback from 7:30 to 8:30, I don't really have to stick around and do much after that. When we don't have playback and I'm done at an hour before lock, it's tough with having to handle him. He's still pooping and peeing all over the house. Once a day, either one of them. Could handle that for an 11-week-old pup. Let's see. Do I have... see what we can do here. Oh, perfect. What's the most recent picture I got of this little dork? What do we got? He was chilling with me last night. Post show. Where'd that go? There we go. This. Do this. Then we'll scoot that way. Sleepy boy. Sam, no puppy pads in the house. We're just trying to be ultra diligent about teaching him to go to the back door and let us know and getting him out. Wife and I are both home, so Steven, very true. Very true. All right, let's get to game number 3. Brooklyn Nets. Brooklyn Nets. 14-point dogs in Milwaukee, 219 total. This is technically the slowest paced game that I have. Now, Brooklyn's on the back-to-back. We have no idea who's playing for them today. Zaire Williams was questionable yesterday. It's possible he's in today. I left Clowney out today. And I left Ben Simmons out for today. News God, never, man. Never putting pads down. I don't want him to ever think that in the house is the right thing to do. He'll learn it eventually. So, yeah, Clowney got hurt yesterday during the game. I don't remember what it was. Lower back injury, hip injury, something like that. So we don't know his status because of the injury report. But as of right now, I'm going to assume that since he left early yesterday, he's not playing. Maybe we get him back in. Who knows? And then Ben Simmons on a back-to-back. I just going to assume he's not doing that. That leads us to 20% owned D'Angelo Russell. Just north of 15% owned Day'Ron Sharpe. And then everybody else is single digits. Now, I agree with that. I got Russell at 18% optimal, 23% owned. It's 5,200. He's point guard, shooting guard. I upped the minutes from yesterday. I think he's going to start today, assuming Clowney and Simmons are out. I don't think they can screw around. They're out of bodies. They don't have enough right now. Now, maybe Uoman is active. Max Lewis got hurt yesterday, too. First game out of the trade. So we have a lot of news to wait on. But assuming I'm right, the two guys you want to go... Well, the one guy you want to go to is obviously D'Angelo Russell. Cam Thomas is back for this one, or at least should be back for this one. He's unowned. Doesn't look great at 6,800. You can click the name. I think he's the second best play. And then I understand the value proposition for Day'Ron Sharpe. They're missing all of the other bigs. There's no Ben Simmons. There's no Clowney. There's no Trendon Watford. So you would expect Day'Ron Sharpe to play every minute that Nick Claxton doesn't play. And if that's the case, at 3,500, Day'Ron Sharpe's a pretty good value. That's where we stand for right now. But obviously, we need this Brooklyn rotation. And it's really not that great of a spot. They're 2 touchdown underdogs. I'm him, crate training. Yeah, every day for us. Every day. And then he goes in at night. But he spends a decent chunk of time there. Okay. Do you guys have any interest in anything specific from Brooklyn? Because there's really not any ownership other than Russell and Sharpe. But we really do need that injury report. Josh named him Keith after his favorite musical artist, Keith Urban. I do have a Keith Urban song in my inner circle Hall of Fame, but that's not why he's named Keith. Want to talk about why he's named Keith? Pull it up on the screen here. Here it is. That's why he's Keith, baby. That's where it's at. Look at that, man. A gorgeous Craig Sheffer. Represent Keith Scott. Not Toby Keith either. Not Toby Keith. All right, let's get to Milwaukee. So for the Bucks, not really any ownership coming in on this one. Giannis is probable. Middleton is probable. Dame's not on the injury report. Only thing we're waiting on here, AJ Green is questionable. So 7% ownership to Chris Middleton, 18% ownership to Giannis. Everybody else is at 1%. I got Giannis 14% optimal, 17.5 equivalent boom. He's 18% owned. Spot on ownership on Giannis. Love it. Happy to pay up 11-4. Not a soul on the Brooklyn Nets going to slow him down today. Middleton got to 7. That's exactly where I have him. But that's it. I got Brook Lopez, 5% optimal. Dame, 4. Taurean Prince, 5. None of these guys should be getting any ownership. So it's really Giannis and Middleton and nobody else. And even then, it's not like Middleton looks great. It's Giannis and nothing else. Why is Minnesota so high owned? Boston, good defense. Salaries and minutes, same as every other time. They're highly owned because it's a slight pace up spot for Minnesota, and they only play 7 guys, essentially. I mean, they play 8 guys, but Nickeil Alexander-Walker is sort of off the table from a fantasy perspective. And there's not a ton of value out there right now. Josh's next dog, Dawson or Pacey? It would be Pacey if it were going to be anything there, but I would probably even go further off the beaten path. Is Trent worth thinking about if Green is out? A little bit. Yeah. Like at that point, I think we probably see Ryan Rollins get a couple minutes, and then you just incrementally bump Prince, Trent, Jackson, and it ends up like just coming out in the wash. Josh, when kid, what? So yeah, play Giannis. What are the other pay-ups for today? I know we got Embiid, but I have no idea what his price is. So we got AD. We got Giannis at 11-4, Shea at 10-9, AD at 10-7, Jason Tatum at 10-4, LeBron at 9-9. And I would rank those guys AD, LeBron, Giannis, Shea, Tatum. So. Josh Wen Kid. Yes. Okay. Good story. The Clippers are 9.5-point dogs in Oklahoma City. 219 total. Clippers are at full strength, minus Kawhi Leonard and Terrence Mann. On the Thunder side, still no Caruso. We're getting around 10% ownership for Harden, Zubats, Dunn, and Jones. I'm going to go out on a limb and say the 5% ownership to Norm Powell is a little low. I have Norm Powell 13% optimal. That's higher than anybody else on the Clippers. So if Norm Powell continues to maintain this ownership, he's not owned enough. And he's the most interesting guy to me. I think Harden's properly owned. I think Zubats is properly owned. I think Chris Dunn's properly owned. I think Derek Jones Jr. is properly owned. I think Amir Coffey's properly owned. They should be like 5 to 10. But I don't know why Norm Powell is only 5% owned. I get that the matchup sucks. It's not fun to go up against OKC. But Norm Powell should be more owned if he's 7,300, shooting guard, small forward eligible, and he's playing like 36 minutes a night. Dick Chuck, I will be never having one. I hope. Were you guys with me on Norm Powell today? Assuming he's 5% owned, target score 43 fantasy points. That's pretty manageable. $43 for him is what we'd be looking for. I mean, he had that 2 games ago. He's had it in 3 of his last 6, which wouldn't be bad. Josh, if one was playing the 50-cent mini-max, what sim settings would you recommend? Marquee, low stakes, or the one right in between? I'm not sure. I would have to test it. I would run all of them, find out where those top guys are, and compare them to what you ended up getting in like post-contest sims. My assumption is one notch to the left, but I don't know for sure. I would have to check it out. I don't know the size of that contest or anything like that, so you would just have to run the contest generator, see where the chalk guys end up, and try to check back to that relationship. Like, what you want to do is like run the contest generator for it, and then compare the top guys to like where they're coming out in the main, and that'll help lead you in the direction you need to go. Powell will get bench. OKC gonna blow them out. Okay. Sounds good. Anyway, I like Norm Powell the most of anybody on the Clippers. Let's get that out of the way again. But yeah, if you get Harden or Zoo or Chris Dunn, I think you're fine. We basically only have like one more game of rostering Clippers before Kawhi comes back, and you don't roster anybody for like a week or two. Because once Kawhi comes in, every single one of these guys are going to be massively overpriced. All right, now we go to OKC. So for OKC, we are getting quite a bit of ownership in here today. Feels a little high to me. Uh, 30% ownership coming into Cason Wallace. Just shy of 30 to Lou Dort. 15 to Jalen Williams. And around 10 for Shea and Hartenstein. Now, I got to be very clear here. I think that Cason Wallace ownership is way too high. I think that Lou Dort ownership is a bit too high. It's not that Cason Wallace isn't a great value, because he is. He profiles as like the second best option you can get from the Thunder today. And the minutes are there. 30% ownership is more than we want here. Now, it is a testament of how little value exists on this slate. But I do feel like that number is just a hair more than I would want it to be. Dort makes sense at 27. It would make a little bit more interesting at like 22 or so. But at least for Dort, it's fine. It's a better position, shooting guard, small forward. So I get those guys getting the ownership. It just feels a hair too much. I think Shea is under-owned at 8%. But, you do have that relationship between the other 5-figure guys. Hartenstein looks okay, probably a hair over-owned at 9%. And then Jalen Williams looks totally reasonable at 15. Why does OKC start Wallace? Who do you want them to start? I mean, they don't care. They're going to start whatever else fits. I'm not quite sure we can question OKC's decision-making process right now. Yeah, I mean, he's exceptional defensively. That helps. Brandon, that's exactly what you're trying to do. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Cason Wallace, Lou Dort, Jay Will, and Isaiah Hartenstein have played the most minutes together of any group for OKC. They've played 336 possessions together. They are plus 12 per 100 possessions. When Hartenstein becomes Chet, they're still plus 8. And when they had no center and turned that into Isaiah Joe, they were plus 32. So, the Cason Wallace starting seems to be working pretty well. Seems to be working quite well. But yeah, I'm happy to get to, as much Shea as I could wouldn't bother me. Cason Wallace and Dort are the best two options, but they are a hair over-owned. Just a hair. Because this is a pace down. I mean, they're losing 2.1 possessions relative to their salary today. That is a little bit of a pace down spot, but I'm happy. Like, these guys are playing big minutes right now. Like, they're really locking their starters in a little bit more than they had been. We've got Jalen Williams playing 34 a night over his last 10. We've got Shea playing 35. Cason Wallace has played 30 plus in his last 3. Dort, plays right around 30 every night. Hartenstein, is just going to be out there. Jake, they're going to play Chet and Hartenstein together a lot. Like as much as they can to find out what it looks like. But yeah, they're going to play those guys together for sure. No doubt about it. And no one is going to score. When they're able to do like Shea, Dort, Jalen, and the two bigs, that's death. That is absolute death to other teams. I don't know what you do to stop that. How do you break that down? What's the weak link? And you can very easily hot swap out somebody else if you want to make that become offense. Anytime that another team has a not good offensive player against OKC, they are going to have Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein on the floor together, and one of those dudes is going to be guarding somebody that sucks. And you are never, ever, 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 ever going to get to the rim. And when you do, you're going to get erased. It's going to be next to impossible to have, if OKC played like the Bucks, and it's not even because of Giannis needing two bigs, you can't put Andre Jackson out there anymore. Because Chet Holmgren's going to be 6 feet away from him, able to close out, and then able to send anybody else's shit anytime they get to the paint. They're so damn good. You know why when I try to watch the stream on 2x speed, it keeps going back to regular speed? Yeah, man, you can't 2x into the future, boss. You keep listening and do it at 2x, it's going to end before I finish the show. I'm going to assume all you're doing is catching up to live, and you can't play live shows faster than regular life. OKC doesn't have enough offense. That's their kryptonite. I mean, they've got a 116 offensive rating and a 73rd percentile offense. I don't know how true that is, but even if we want to believe that that's true, and I do agree that they could use more offense, they can go get it. They can go get it. If they want to go get Colin Sexton, they can pay whatever they want and just have another offensive dude. And that's just one example here. That was one of the more ridiculous questions we've ever had on this show. And insert any sort of offense first person in that Sexton role. I don't really care what the example is, but I assume they're going to go get something else. There's no reason not to. They have salaries right now that they could offload that won't affect them in any way. And there's no reason to not cash in those chips right now. You've got, in theory, Aaron Wiggins on a $10 million deal, which you do want to keep around, but could use it. Kenrich is on 6.5. Ousmane Dieng is on 5. You could put those two guys together right now, get to 11. One more dude can get you a pretty big upgrade at that point. Yeah, Mitchell, I'm going to go ahead and disagree with that one. Obviously. I mean, that's a wild take. We're talking about a team right now that's 7th in offense and number 1 in defense and has the second best record in the league and the second best net rating. We should probably pump the brakes on. They're probably going to have another early exit. Can OKC land Cam Johnson? They can land anybody they want in the league faster than anybody else can in the league. They can have anybody they want if they want to. Oh, Dick Chuck, I think you're very wrong. Very wrong. Okay, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. All right, game 5. 2 to go here. I mean, they could trade for LeBron. That would require Dort probably having to go out just from a salary perspective, but in theory, they could trade for LeBron. But they can get anybody they want. Anybody at all. And it wouldn't even be difficult. Wouldn't even be difficult. If I'm them, I'm going and trying to get, I would be looking at someone like Cam Johnson for sure. You got to be cognizant of contracts too. Actually, yeah, that's too long of a deal. Like, do you want to go I mean this one sincerely. Do you just go and try and grab Anthony Simons for the next year and a half and then flip him again? I don't know, maybe. I don't think that would be crazy. Just go grab some offense. Could do it. They could do it. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, Wemby is probably going to be a tough one to do. That one might be tough. So, Sixers. Kind of tough to talk about these guys. They're on the back-to-back. We had no Embiid yesterday. We had no Kelly Oubre yesterday. We don't have their injury report. We're still waiting on all of the potential news when this one happens. For right now, I have Embiid in. I've got Kelly Oubre in. I've got George in. I've got Maxey in. But we're going to need this injury report. They're 2.5-point dogs in Golden State, 217 total. Right now, we're projecting around 30% ownership to Paul George, around 15 to Embiid, and then single digits for everybody else. I love Philly here, if I'm right. The way that I'm looking at this one right now, I think Embiid is massively underowned at 9,400. He's 14% owned. I had him 23% optimal. He's one of my favorite plays of the day. I think everybody should be getting to Joel Embiid if he's in today. Massively underowned. I think Paul George is a bit overowned at 29%, but he does look good at 7K, shooting guard, small forward. I think Maxey's underowned. I think Caleb Martin, given the fact that he's playing 35 minutes a night, is a bit underowned. And I would be willing to play some Kelly Oubre, assuming he is in. But we do need this injury report in a big way. But assuming Joel Embiid is playing today, I would like to get him quite a bit. I don't know why he's only 14%. He looks awesome. He looks downright awesome. But who knows? This could look a little bit different. I will say that we'll pay attention to this for whatever it's worth right now. If I have everybody in for Philly and everybody in for Golden State, I have Philly as the favorites in this game. That's a 4-point gap right now. So, that's leading me to think that we might not have Joel Embiid here. We might not have Paul George here. Both of those things seem possible. But we also have a Q tag on Steph Curry today. Still no Gary Payton. Still no Brandon Pajemski. So there's a lot up in the air in this game. But if they're at full strength, I'm intrigued by it. Sam, I would email YouTube, man. We don't run this. Live, life, grow. I'm sure you are looking at out beside his name. That is Aaron, Embiid listed out on RotoWire if that means anything. It means nothing. All y'all that think that it means anything here for Embiid being out, it is meaningless. You're all looking in the wrong place. You're all looking in the wrong place. Now, to be clear here, he could be out. It's Joel Embiid. He's out permanently. So I would not be surprised at all if he is out, but there's not a single injury designation anywhere out there right now that is relevant for today. Aaron, the right place is the NBA injury report. NBA.com. That would be the right spot. That would be the right spot. But if he's in, he's arguably my favorite play today, given where that ownership is right now. But I think this entire starting five for Philly has the potential to be under-owned, assuming they're all in. But we're going to need that news. Same situation on the opposite side here. We're going to need that news for Golden State. Steph in and Steph out are pretty important. And right now we are getting 40% ownership to Trayce Jackson-Davis, 40% ownership to Dennis Schroeder, 20% ownership to Kuminga, 15 to Wiggins, and just shy of 10 for Curry and Draymond. That's a lot of ownership to Trayce Jackson-Davis, but I get it. I got him 6x his salary. He looks really good as a point per dollar option. Schroeder looks solid. 40% ownership feels a little high for him, but that might look a little bit better if Steph happens to be out. I think Draymond is pretty clearly under-owned at 8%. I think Kuminga is spot on his ownership at 18%. I think Andrew Wiggins is spot on his ownership at 13%. And I think Steph Curry is spot on his ownership at 7%. But right now, we are talking about the most owned team on today's slate. Now, I do think that Schroeder is probably a little more owned than he should be. But I want to get to a lot of Golden State here, for sure. I kind of feel like Kuminga is the best play, but that's scary with him coming off the bench. Trayce Jackson-Davis is obviously the easiest guy to get to, but when you're center only, it complicates matters a little bit. All told, though, I think you got to get to these guys a bunch. The real important piece here will be if Steph doesn't play. Because if he doesn't, then you can really feel good about Dennis Schroeder. You probably can bump up a couple of these other guys. You'll feel way better about making sure you do get to Jonathan Kuminga. But I think Draymond's under-owned. And I think the rest of these guys just need to be in lineups. I mean, as of right now, you're probably putting Trayce Jackson-Davis and Dennis Schroeder in your chalk lineups, or in your cash lineups. I'm a little nervous about the Schroeder piece, but Trayce Jackson-Davis goes straight in. But I mean, this is the team getting the most ownership on the slate. This is the team that got the most optimal rate for me of any team on the slate. This is the team that got the most boom rate of any team on the slate. It's easy. It's easy. As of right now, the Golden State Warriors are the best team on the slate. Take that for what it's worth. And, I mean, obviously, to have a bit more of exposure to Philly and Golden State is great. That allows you opportunities for late swaps for between 7:30 and 8 o'clock with Brooklyn and Milwaukee, the Clippers and OKC. You can still get to more of that Portland Lakers game if you need to. So with this being a 10 o'clock start, I don't feel bad at all getting to a lot of it. Our final game of the day, the Portland Trailblazers are 9-point dogs in Los Angeles, 224 total. Portland has a Q tag on Delano Banton, and they will also be without Jeremy Grant for this one. Grant missed their last game as well. Everybody else was available for that one. We are getting 50% ownership to Denny Avdia at 5,700, small forward, power forward eligible. 10% then to Simons, Kamara, Sharp, Ayton, and Scoot. I think Ayton is the second most interesting guy from Portland, but let's just assume Denny Avdia is going to be starting once again in the place of Jeremy Grant. He's too cheap. I love the value. He's got an MPE. I'm not at all surprised to see him be close to 50% owned. It's a little high, but he's the best play of the day, or at least one of the best plays of the day. Whether that's... See, right now I have him second behind Embiid in contenders. So It's really easy to get to Denny. He's absolutely going into every cash lineup, at least as of right now. But if you want to go to the rest of Portland, I don't hate it. I really don't. You know, the Lakers defense isn't anything special. And I've got Simons, Kamara, Sharp, Ayton, and Scoot all 10% optimal or higher. You can make a real good case that like Toumani Kamara is a little under-owned given the fact that there's no Grant. He's going to play north of 30, especially if this is competitive. But I really like the Portland side of this one. And given those optimal rates and boom rates, I'm probably going to have a decent chunk of Portland, which is great for potential late swaps. If you need to move stuff around in that Philly Golden State game, having a little bit more of the 10:30 start will help us out here. It will help us out. And then finally on the Lakers side, Anthony Davis is questionable for today. Gabe Vincent is questionable. Everything else is pretty normal. We're getting 35% ownership to LeBron James, 25 to Anthony Davis, and then 10 for Rui, 10 for Reeves. I think Rui and Reeves should both be there. I think Max Christie is probably a little underrepresented at 3% ownership. I would say I like AD more than LeBron, but it's kind of clouded by the fact that he's just a center. I think LeBron is one of the most ideal pay-up options you're going to get. He's 34% owned. He largely deserves it. He's 9,900. The only problem here is that he's power forward only, but 40% boom, 16% optimal. You're looking for 55 fantasy points out of LeBron against the Portland Trailblazers today. Deserves every bit of that ownership. I'm happy to get to LeBron. I'm happy to get to AD. Either one of those guys work. So like overall, if I'm ranking my preferred options today, it's going to be Embiid is a bit of a priority for me, assuming he's playing. Denny looks amazing. Kuminga looks really good and could look a lot better if Steph happens to be out. I don't mind getting to AD, but we got to remember that I do prefer Joel Embiid to Anthony Davis. Naz Reid looks like great value. D'Angelo Russell looks like great value. If you don't want to pay up for, say, Embiid and AD, Trace Jackson Davis is right there for you guys. I think Caleb Martin's underowned. I think Draymond's underowned. I think Andrew Nembhard is underowned. And I'm happy to get to LeBron. Very, very cost effective. Yeah, LeBron James, 40 years old now. He beats me to it by 6 weeks. I'll tell you what, I think LeBron and I are pretty similar in physical stature, right? We're the same age. Both graduated in 03. His birthday late December, mine early February. We're basically the same thing at 40. So I'm feeling just like LeBron is right now. Now, maybe I don't spend $1 million a year to keep my body in tip-top shape, but I do drink a lot. Alrighty, folks. That is gonna do it. We'll be back later today for the deeper dive at 5:30, for live before lock at 6:30, and for playback where we can watch a bit of that Indy Miami game later tonight. If you want to sign up at Stokastic, link in the description. Click that bad boy. Come on in, get projections and ownership and sim tools, all of that good stuff. Jeremy, you would die running down the court. Now, I'd be okay right now. I could handle a rotation. I'm in tolerable shape for myself right now. If this were 6 months ago, it would have been real tough. Right now, I'd be all right. Trust me on that one. And don't get me wrong, it wouldn't be good. But I'd be okay for a bit. Is Braun on the juice? I hope so. He should be. Everybody is. Crazy if you're not in sports at this point. Anyway, that's going to do it. Awesome day. Tomorrow's Friday. We close out the work week strong. Good luck to everybody. Win some money. Let's try to not get McBrided tonight. Talk to you guys later.